Since there's no tagline, I'm just gonna read the top.
I do.
The top. Oh, okay. Do you have a tagline?
I do have a tagline, but
Right. You go ahead,
wanna...
and I'll read this. I want to read this top review on Letterboxd.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Brace yourselves for Ghost Adventures, Devil's Den.
Boo.
Brace yourself.
Barry,
You're not ready.
Barry Egan gave this 3 stars and said, "This is the funniest shit I've ever watched. It's fucking terrible, but hilarious."
This was next level. I would say.
The second review, I love my pathetic little ghost hunters so much.
That was me.
Yeah, you're V.
Yep.
Well, their number 1 favorite movie on here is Scream. It might be you.
It is. Surprise.
I've
been V this whole time.
You 23?
Yep, you know it.
All right.
Okay, come on. You guys know that I'm 13, okay? I have to try and be older for my internet presence.
This is episode 300 and something in the teens, I think.
I don't know.
I've recorded like 3 episodes this week. I forget where I'm at. So this is
fair.
An episode number, I'm going to say 313. I think that's what it is. I'm Nathan.
Hello, I'm Katie. Resident Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
Expert.
So obviously Kit's not here again.
Yep.
So we were going to do Monsternado, but Kit had a scheduling conflict, so that'll be the following week now. We'll be
Kit
somewhat
actually
back to normal.
quit, and we've just been pretending for months that he's coming back. So no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
He is precautiously walking up and down glass staircases right now. So.
Yeah, that checks out.
I don't think precautiously is a word, but you know what? I've had a lot going on. Yeah, that's right. He's pro-caution. If you guys didn't know, that's where he stands on that.
Kit works for OSHA.
I wish he did.
Yeah, we're talking about 2022's Ghost Adventures, The Devil's Den.
Next t-shirt.
Kit is an OSHA supervisor.
I'm Kit from OSHA.
There you go. That's it. Just white font.
Yes.
On black shirt. Kit from OSHA.
It's going to be a white shirt that says OSHA, and then there's going to be a fake, name tag that says, the fake name tags, and it's going to say Kit on it.
I'm Kit from OSHA, and I don't vote.
Yeah. He's going to be like, what? Who?
Just not even tell him. We just drop it.
Nobody, yeah, and then he's going to just be like, what? He's going to have to listen to 12 Ghost Adventures episodes to figure out what's going on.
It would be so funny if the only episodes Kit has ever listened to this podcast were the Ghost Adventures ones.
I think he should, because he's got to do Demon House.
Well, I think we could probably do 2 more episodes of the specials and then do Demon House, so.
Yeah, get ready, Kit. We're coming for you. And OSHA.
Because I know the original special, and then the other one, they do the Goldfield Hotel or whatever, where they return to it. And then I think the only other one is Skinwalker Invasion.
Oh my god.
And then I still have to watch Cecil Hotel in one of these episodes.
Yeah.
So you got at least 2 more episodes of this bullshit to look forward to. At least in a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably sometime after the anniversary episode, I assume.
Oh my goodness.
Alright. Yeah, this episode is insane.
Yeah. This is actually, doing these specials, I feel like has been a good representation of all the small aspects that make up Ghost Adventures, because every one of them that we've done has been a really good showcase into weirdness, the quirks of them, the one we did, Devil's Island, where they hyperfixate on one story and then try and like move all of their evidence into this one thing. Then when we did Lake of Death, again, same thing, but then also them like insisting on evidence that just is nonsensical. This one is the best concentrated example of them being just
weird little freaks.
Literally being over, like, number one, possession. People get possessed like 12 times, but then also being just like completely overtaken by emotions. I would say most of the quote unquote evidence in this episode is just them being wacky, like emotional guys together. Yeah. And then some black mist.
So this is the episode that played right after the Joe Exotic one when I was in the ER, but like I couldn't really hear anything. I just remembered the scene where Zach Baggins is just like quote unquote possessed and in that dude's face for like 10 minutes. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, are you gone? Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I got possessed for a second.
I was like, what the fuck is happening? Why is no one answering me?
Well, I don't know what whatever. I'm here. I'm back. I was enthusiastically saying exactly the scene that I knew you were talking about, where he just was like shoving Jay up against the wall and like heavy breathing into his mic through his mask. Terrifying stuff, if you ask me.
The night vision footage, there's just like a weird upshot of his face while he's just standing there, and this dude's face is so funny.
So yelling and crying, and it's iconic, to be honest with you. I will say this episode is like don't get me wrong, we're gonna have a goof talking about it, but the place that they're in that's called the Devil's Den was a like juvenile detainment facility, and the things that happen at this facility and like the background that we get is extremely sad. I have never seen. There's one man that they interview who used to be an inmate here, and as he's telling the story, he's like crying, and he's like very obviously going through emotionally a lot of his trauma, and it was like very upsetting to me. So I will say like obviously anything when we're talking about ghosts, like people have to die for there to be ghosts in theory, right? And a lot of times when they're talking about like the history, there's bad stuff that happens. This to me was like very dark, and so I'm gonna say, if you're gonna listen to this or watch this, like maybe a trigger warning, because it's literally dealing with children. Like it's a juvenile. There's like all of this stuff that they're just like casually talking about, inmates this, inmates that, and I'm like, well, they are literally children.
You have to take into account that like 2 of the people they talk to were fucking prison guards, so like,
oh yeah,
they're probably somewhat soulless monsters.
Sure, I don't care.
Have been beaten into it, but like, yeah, when like the one inmate and then the lady that was like a volunteer that would come in and like play games with some of the kids and shit like that. Both their stories are like real bleak.
So sad. And when I took notes, I didn't really super go into detail, but I'm just like warning people, if you're going to go watch the special, maybe trigger warning for terrible things happening to children, because they do go into it a little bit more extensively, which I left out. So I actually like, I don't know, specifically the one guy, Ned, who was like telling his story and was just like crying. I just like was like, I just felt so like sad for him, all of the shit that he had to go through. And then they're like, obviously he was like a willing participant to like come back and relive it. He's obviously trying to get some kind of like closure in his life, but it's just like sad that he has to go through it, to me, on like camera with this guy. You know what I don't know.
Fucking Zach Baggins.
With Zach Baggins, yeah. And I will say, like, it all comes back to like, I don't remember if I said this in the first episode or the second one we did. Zach is good at kind of like reiterating to people, like, we believe you, like, you're not crazy, the stuff that happened to you, like, we know, whatever. And I do feel like this person in like specific got something out of that. Somebody being validating like his feelings of like the stuff, the horrors, literally horrors that happened to him at this like juvenile detainment center. And he does say like it was prison, because he's like, oh, tell me a little bit about your experience here. And he was like, well, it was a jail. But like, obviously, I don't know. There's a lot that goes into it, right? When you're talking about like legally disciplining minors. So I don't know. Just, I think trigger warning for that. So.
Well, it's interesting because like he talks about at one point like a bunch of people that were locked up in there would talk about how they would like hear voices and shit. Yeah. And like they're, you know, the place is, you know, supposed to be haunted or whatever, and that like all they would do is they'd be like, all right, well, you're obviously crazy, so we're throwing you in with like all the like mental patients.
Yeah.
And we'll just treat them like that. And he starts like crying. He's like, no one would believe us about anything. And so I feel like Zach being there, just being like, no, you were right. This place is totally full of ghosts.
Bro, this is totally haunted. Don't even worry about it. It's also definitely demons. Yeah, it's hard because, like, and I think that, and so, like, take Ghost Adventures for every goofy thing that it is, right? One of the volunteers, like, says, I'm so glad that you guys are coming back here and talking about all the horrible things that happened, because we at the time couldn't tell anybody because we didn't think anyone would believe us or anyone would care, and it's good that you're bringing this to light now. And like, that's totally fair. Like, I've never heard of this place, and obviously you assume that there's unfortunately terrible stuff that happens at places like this, but like exposing it, even though it's like, this woman said that she volunteered there in like the 80s or whatever, so there's like not much to be done at this point because it's completely closed down, right? But like bringing it to light, kind of giving a voice to all the people there that like went through stuff, and it's like the smallest thing, but like at least they're doing it. And that's kind of like what the guy Ned was saying, specifically when he's talking about what you just said, being put in like the quote unquote mental illness area, because he's like, nobody would listen to us. We were on top of everything else that's terrible that like the people are doing to them. Like, we were really scared. We couldn't sleep. We were hearing voices. We were seeing things. And then they just thought, oh, here, let me pump these kids full of drugs. And he's like, we didn't need medicine. We needed help. It was like literally so heartbreaking to me, this episode. But I mean, yeah, so.
Have they done any other like regular episodes in places like this? Like an actual like jail or whatever?
Yeah, so unlike Ghost Hunters, who do some historical sites sometimes, they were essentially mostly house calls, like going to people's houses. But Ghost Adventures has almost always been like historical, either still running or closed sites. So they normally would do like jails, quote unquote asylums, or like, you know, things like that. So they do that kind of thing usually. And then of course, like any other place that's like supposedly really haunted, like Bobby Mackey's or whatever the fuck it's called that everybody's like obsessed with, and stuff like that. So they do jails and things like that too.
I was just curious. Like, I didn't know if this was like the jail was like a special, you know, like a one-off thing for this episode.
No, but he does also say again that a lot of the buildings were previously. My computer keeps yelling at me about stuff that is nothing.
Well.
What was I saying? Oh, he does say that this is another instance, like with Devil's Island, where a lot of the buildings have been previously locked to people in general, and also that they were the first like paranormal crew to come and investigate. So probably because people didn't want the word to get out about how fucking terrible it was. You know what I mean? So they do have that on their side, I guess. Zach Baggins brings a level of credibility to ghost hunting that just people will open up their doors, I guess.
I'm assuming more than anything, it's
Money.
yeah, the fucking I can't think of the network now throwing money at them.
Oh, Travel. I don't know if that's still what they're on, Travel Channel, but
I think so. Well, I mean, it's all like Discovery at this point, but
oh yeah.
I assume it's still it's fucking.
I mean, they're all the same thing now, pretty
so
much. So
ridiculous that this is on Travel Channel, or like Ancient Aliens is the History Channel, 90 Day Fiance is the Learning Channel.
Yeah, you do learn a lot about that.
I mean, I've learned a lot about that everyone from America is terrible.
Yeah, pretty much.
And really bad at getting scammed.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a big one. So the beginning of this episode I thought was really interesting because they advertise for the special Devil's Island, which is the episode that we did last week. And in that episode, Zach references something that happens in this episode, which is Devil's Den, and I was like, okay. They must have, this is like kind of like what we were talking about before, where they must have like filmed because Devil's Island was in the San Francisco Bay, and Devil's Den is in or around Los Angeles. So like they must have filmed these back to back or something. I don't know. I thought that was weird.
Probably. I feel like there's like or like maybe they aired back to back.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. So this episode starts with Zach walking past a wall, and he says, "As I walk on this ground, near a fence with barbed wire over my head, I am reminded by what I feel, shooting up from this ground into my body, which is violence, pain, and torture." What?
Yeah, he's a fucking weirdo.
I'm sorry, sir, that's not a complete sentence. That's not a coherent thought, but that's fine. So we're here at the Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall, is what it was called. It was opened in 1957. It's in Los Angeles, California. And like we said, this is a juvenile detainment facility. They are talking about how it was just like the most heinous. I'm going to just like keep saying this, that they were kids. Kids were sent here. A lot of what they describe as gang members were sent here. They start naming a bunch of gangs. And then they say, okay, so let me remind you, 1957 is when this prison for children opened. It closed in 2019, essentially because of mistreatment.
Yeah, it's unsurprising.
Yeah, really sad that it lasted this long, though. But they're basically just saying, like, because it was exposed of all this mistreatment, there was deaths of inmates, there was deaths of staff, and Zach says that all of this has created a dark rift between the living and the dead. So, first we meet Andy, who was what they call a former gang member, and he is basically just talking about how the guards would mistreat them, like pretty much stuff that you assume, like they would push them around for no reason. If the kids were like having like, I don't know, an outburst of emotion, they would like punch them in the stomach, just like stuff like that, right? And they do take him inside to kind of like look around. This is when Zach tells us that they haven't even started the investigation, but they've already been experiencing things they can't explain, which is that they find a chair by the room where Andy used to be an inmate, say that has his name on it, and they think that's really crazy and weird.
What was his name, like, extremely common to?
Andy!
Yeah.
So, they're freaking out over this chair that says Andy on the back, and it's like, okay.
It would be so funny if it was one of those things where, like, you know how, like, they shorten it, like, the shoe and stuff like that, they just shorten things. What if Andy was just, like, the shortened name of some part of the prison? They're like, oh my god.
So, yeah, so they're freaking out.
Immediately.
Over Andy. Yes, literally. Sorry, hold on.
What's happening? You getting yelled at again?
No, I got a message about the cat that we took to the shelter. Okay. Yeah, can't believe this chair has somebody's name that went to the facility on it. Crazy. This is when, so you'll recall in our last episode that there was a tech expert there named Jeff who was trying to operate something called a Tesla coil when they were like doing that experiment. And Jeff had a moment where I don't know. He basically was like being weird and being all affected while everybody was like getting mad and yelling at each other or whatever. Jeff's here with us again, and he says that he saw somebody in the building, and he's like, oh my god, I saw somebody here, walk in there. And of course they're like, this is supposed to be a closed investigation, nobody should be in there. So they go into this building where he saw a person, and it's the special handling building. Which essentially was a building for, like, the kids who were extra hard to handle. Whatever that means, right?
Yeah, so just like the quote-unquote more trouble kids.
Right. And, this is when they just, like, this is the building where Ned, who we're gonna talk about soon, that we were talking about earlier, was being held. And so they're saying that the kids, and it's not just him, right? There's multiple of these reports throughout the years or whatever. They don't give us statistics, but this is the building where the kids would see shadow entities, or they would see like doppelgangers of the guards, which seems really terrifying. There's a few, like, they do this thing that they do like a lot where they'll, like, interview people and they'll say like one sentence and it's like kind of just reiterating the same thing that everybody else said, right? Like one of the guards says that one of the kids said that they saw the guard come into their room and they were like, and he's like, no, I didn't, just like shit like that, right? And so Zach is talking to one of the guards, he's a former guard, and they're talking about this like special handling building, the entities and all that and whatnot. And Zach just straight up asks if any of the kids were possessed. And the guard is just like, yeah, the kids would cut themselves and then draw pentagrams with the blood on the floor and also worship Satan. Great.
I feel like that, like, one person probably made, like, a pentagram in there, and then it just became, like, a thing where they're like, all of the prisoners did this.
I mean, they kind of made it seem like it was the entire wing of that building. The kids were, like, doing this shit, but when they start doing the investigation, they really only focus on, like, they focus on, like, two specific rooms, so, like, I don't know. The guy's like, yeah, totally. They were worshiping Satan all the time. They were definitely possessed. And I'm like, please don't perpetuate this because, again, they're children. And also, can we just point out that they're also children giving probably like antipsychotic medication for conditions that they don't actually have?
Right.
So nobody seems to be concerned about that, though. It's fine. Zach tries to do an EVP session, but the recorder, mysteriously, the batteries are dead. Oh my god. And then
charge
the toilet,
your fucking
I know,
thing,
right?
Zach.
As we said. Then the toilet flushes by itself, and
they all lose their goddamn minds.
They lose their minds because not only this is, mind you, pre-investigation, so all the lights in the building are still on, and like he's like, the only way for this toilet to have flushed is if you press this button on the wall. And I'm like, okay. Don't worry. It's fine.
No possible way that it could just be a malfunctioning toilet after fucking years of use.
Mm-mm. No, there's no way.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way. Toilets function properly always, okay?
Yep.
Okay. Earlier, when they were looking for this shadow person that Jeff saw in the building, Zach told him that he was not to go into the building anymore because he's easily affected, I guess, as we've seen. And it's for his safety. Don't go back in the building. But they discover that Jeff has come back into the building, and because they hear voices and they're like, what? And so they go over and they find Jeff just like sitting in this room talking about how when he was outside he was feeling a lot of pain, so he had to come inside. He just didn't have it. He just couldn't help it. And they're like, okay, silly, get out of here. You got to get out of this room.
I wish they called him silly.
And when they leave the room, they're like, oh my god, it's room 20. This is the room that we just discovered was the devil worship room. And then they show us a replay of when Jeff came in the building before, and it was the same room or whatever the fuck. Then they're talking about how there was a kid who died by suicide in the infirmary. I'm going to say they do this in the show a lot. And they have done it in some of the specials, but I feel like not to the extent that we see in this episode, where they show us recreations of things.
Yeah, that seemed new to me, how much recreations were in this.
And they do that a lot in the regular show in the newer seasons. And this special is from 2022, so I feel like maybe, all of the specials were pretty new, but they do it in the show a lot, and in this one they do it, and normally it's somebody standing in a window shaking, blah, 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 House on Haunted Hill style or whatever.
A horse peeing in a room.
Or a horse peeing. Or in this one also really bad CGI demons just in places. And those
are real demons.
And this scene, when they're talking about this child who died by suicide, they show a recreation of a guy hanging by a bed sheet, and I was like, that seems very unnecessary. Who was in charge of that? We understand what that looks like. We don't need some guy pretending to hang himself. What? Really, really unhinged decision there. So they're back at room 20, which is, the devil worship room, if you will. They get an EMF spike, of course. Zach gets a sudden fit of rage and tries to slap Billy. Then they do a spirit box session where somebody says the word death.
Got him.
Then... Then, wouldn't you know it, Jeff is back in the fucking building again. And
they gotta fire this dude. He is clearly not following the rules.
He also, I think that probably part of his job is to help set up the equipment, but he's not doing, anything specific in this episode. Send him home. He doesn't need to be here. Or he needs supervision if he's being told to stay outside, and this is, the 5th time he's been in the building at this point. What's he supposed to do, just stand outside by himself? Come on. They need to put, a bell on him or something. Jeff is in the building again. Zach is worried that he's being possessed. And Zach says that Jeff looks like an animal suffering in an unholy trap. Whatever that means. Jeff is freaking out again. He's, just saying stuff he's obviously very disoriented looking. And they start freaking out because, again, they realize that it's room 20, the devil room. And I'm like, you guys I'm so confused because the way that this was spliced together, it looks to us as if they had been investigating this room.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my god, room 20!
My theory is they only had access to one room. And so they just kept telling people to go to it.
Essentially. Very strange. Also... if Jeff is just faking, I imagine there's a conversation before they start where Zach's like, okay, listen, Jeff, what I want you to do is I want you to keep going inside to room 20, and then I'm gonna come and pretend like I discovered you there, and then I am gonna kick you out, and then I want you to just come back in.
Yep.
But the thought of that guy walking in and just because at one point he shuts the door and he's just sitting in there in the dark. I'm like, I absolutely don't want to do that either. So
what if he's just been up all day and he needed a fucking nap?
Right, he's trying to take a nap and Zach's like, I don't pay you to sleep, man.
Yeah, quit going into the one room we have access to and shutting the door.
Um, so they freak the fuck out. And like, this is like one of the issues that I have with the show. Just one, where something happens and they all just start yelling. Like, oh my god, dude, I put that right there. Did you see that? And they're just like fucking yelling at each other. And I'm like, can you just like chill for a minute? Because I'm not even sure, like, it's just like chaos immediately. And I'm like, I can't even figure out what you guys are trying to say happens. Because you're like jumping around and clicking your heels and like high-fiving and shit. Like, just chill out. So they're all freaking out because this is room 20 again. This is when Zach, once again, is just so filled with rage that he can't contain himself, and he fucking takes off running down the hall, scaring Lauren, who is one of the camera operators, and she was a part of the investigation in that episode Lake of Death, or special Lake of Death, where, like, Aaron and whoever were, like, lost in the brush. Poor Lauren was, like, lost with them bushwhacking and shit. It's her. And they, like, turn the camera to her, and they're like, are you okay? And she's just like, yeah, I just was really scared because I thought he was, like, coming at me. And she's talking to Billy about how, like, Zach is acting really weird. Like, his eyes his eyes look really dark and not normal. At one point, he was, like, massaging the wall, which I did notice earlier, and nobody, like, said anything about, and I was like, why is he just, like, rubbing the wall like that?
I assume he just does that.
He probably does. But anyways,
this is the first time they actually caught it on camera.
He's just a wall rubber. He loves it. And so she's just basically just like, yeah, I'm fine. I just was, like, worried. Like, I'm worried about him. He's acting weird, right? Okay. This is when they contemplate stopping the investigation for the night, just because everything's just being so crazy. All of this stuff is happening, right? And Billy says that the spirits in the building are like hungry crocodiles.
Yep.
You know it. So this is where we get like two, like, interviews kind of like spliced together. One is the former inmate Ned, who is the guy we were talking about earlier. He was a inmate for 5 years there. And then the other is the former female volunteer. She was there in the 80s. She is anonymous. Her face is blurred out. Her voice is distorted. We don't get her name or anything. And they're basically, I'm not going to go into it any further, but they're basically just talking about how terrible the conditions were there. And et cetera, et cetera. This is the part that really got me, because Ned is talking about how, like, you can never prepare yourself, like, mentally for what's going to happen when you're an inmate. And, like, again, I hate to keep harping on this, but they're children. They're juveniles, right? And, like, of course, they don't need to tell us what he did. We don't need to know, but it doesn't really matter to me because, like, I don't know. I won't get into it. The prison system literally infuriates me.
No, it's
but
good.
It's
it
just
works fine.
It's terrible. It's terrible, right? It's great. It's really good, actually. Lots of reform happening here.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. And so Ned is just talking about, like, how bad it was just physically being there, and then also he said, but what was even worse was, like, the paranormal stuff that would happen to me, because again, like we said, like, nobody would believe them. They were kind of gaslighting him by being like, you're not, everything's fine. Are you crazy? You're just going crazy. Like, you're not hearing voices. You're not whatever. And Ned starts crying, and it just, like, really got me. And he's like, Zach says, like, I know that we, like, secured your interview by saying that you didn't have to go in the building, but I just want to know, like, will you go inside? And he's just like, yeah, I will. Like, I want closure. I need to do this. Let's go back inside.
We also have to, like, take into account that there were Dementors in the prison. At least based on something else I watched this week.
It's true. There was a head prisoner there named Mike who so they go into the building. Ned is going to show them, he calls it his room. It was his prison cell, okay? They go in there, and Zach says, as if the devil himself were speaking to me, I hear a voice from down the hall. The devil himself came up from hell to speak specifically to Zach Bagans in this moment.
Honestly,
at this juvenile
at this
center.
point, I would believe it.
We don't hear the voice. It's not captured on anything. It's not showed to us at all. But Zach says that he sees a black thing on the ceiling. I mean, no thank you. But again, no evidence of this happening. He's just talking about it. They're going to go to Ned's room. He is saying that in his room he experienced shadow people, whispering voices, and also the feeling of pure evil. Not great. Ned is like really going through it, right?
Yeah, it's this whole thing is wild because I feel like 90% of it is Ned just talking about their treatment in there, and then Zach being like, "Wow, do you think the devil was possessing these guards and these children?"
Yeah.
And he's like, I guess. I don't know. I got beat up a lot, or like whatever."
Yeah, it is weird, the spin that Zach, like, this is the part where I was saying earlier where Ned's talking about how they were just being, like, medicated for conditions they didn't have because the people, he's just like, we just needed help. Like, we needed help and nobody gave it to us. And he's, like, sobbing. And Zach's like, right, so the devil was possessing people.
Like, I just wish he would have just been like, "Bro, you think the devil's bad? Have you ever met a prison guard?"
Like, literally, yes. To children.
Yeah.
Like, imagine, like, I'm not saying that it's okay for prison guards to abuse adult offenders, like, at all, but I imagine that it happens maybe somewhat less because, like, the prison guards obviously are also adults, and I would think that they're probably at least a little bit more afraid of, like, another adult, like a guy who's in there for, like, I don't know, you know, like, whatever, like a mob guy that's in there, right? He's probably like, oh, he's got connections, or he's bigger than me, so I'm just gonna, like, ignore him. Imagine even, like, the smallest, like, machismo or whatever you want to say of, like, a guard to adults, but having that with children, like, who are, like, literally defenseless, definitely in almost every case smaller than them. There's also, we didn't mention this because I skipped over it because I didn't want to talk about it, but there's also female children at this prison, right? I mean, obviously that's the same as, like, adults, but, like, they're just in such a more vulnerable place than the adults are that I can't even imagine, like, the mistreatment.
It's also a thing where, like, I'm sure it's, like, 90% male guards, because, like, the one volunteer talks about, like, the female inmates she would, like, volunteer with or whatever, or, like, play games with, would talk about how, like, the guards would just watch them shower and shit, and I'm just like, great.
Yeah. Right.
Good system we have.
Right, and so there's also that, like, extra level of, like, power imbalance, because, like, obviously adult inmates are going to have some level of, like, apprehension towards guards, but the kids even more so, and they're just, like, already so vulnerable, and they're just, like, being so much more mistreated. So, like, Ned is rightfully trying to, like, unpack his trauma and talk about what happened, and Zach is just like, yeah, so demons. And like we said, though, Ned very, very firmly believes there was something also paranormal happening here, right? It's, like, not just, like, the physical thing, like, the guards that are actually there doing stuff to him. So he's like, I don't know, I just, like, looked for them to help, and they just, like, wouldn't help us. That's not what we needed, etc., etc. And Zach is just like, yeah, like, puts his arm on his shoulder. He's just like, I don't even know what he said. It was kind of nonsensical, to be honest with you. But he basically, like, validates, like, you weren't crazy. Like, there's definitely something going on here. Like, don't worry about it. We're going to figure it out. I'm sure Ned's really relieved, right? Zach says that after the investigation, he wakes up the next day with marks on his body, which kind of just looked like he scratched himself, but
I know.
You know, it's undeniable proof.
It literally looks like he just, like, ran into something in the dark.
Yeah. So now we're on to the actual investigation. This has literally all just been scoping out the prison, which, like, normally I feel like we don't really get a lot of scoping out. Like, But they just wanted to take so many people through the prison, I guess, for whatever reason, that it kind of took up a chunk of the episode. Okay. Before they begin investigating the actual building, Billy pulls them aside because he says that during Ned's interview, they captured a voice. And I'm going to say this. Normally, when they are showing us EVPs and they're like, this is what the person's saying, specifically on Ghost Adventures, I almost never actually hear what they're telling me is being said. Like, it just sounds like blah, 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 like nothing, like whisper mumbles or whatever. I could actually hear the things in these two EVPs that they said they caught. One is a person saying it's pain and misery. And another one is, I lived here, I did suffer pain.
They like lose their mind. They're like, oh my god, it's the first full sentence from a spirit.
Yes. And Zach says, ladies and gentlemen, that is a full sentence by a spirit. It sure was.
The way he
that's
just
all I'm gonna...
like looks at the camera and says it is so funny to me.
For all you internet skeptics out there, that was a full sentence. With a noun, a verb, and... No, okay. They also captured a photo of what they're saying is a dark mass in the bathroom. I will say this, too. Like, they catch 2 light anomalies in this one. Zach says there's only 1, but they do literally show us 2 of them, and they're definitely bugs. You know how I feel about that.
They're very clearly.
Especially, like, the second one, I'm like, it's small, it's literally a moth, like, get over it. I will say it is weird to me that they captured what appears to be a black mass multiple times, because I feel like it's very uncommon, unless it's a quote-unquote light anomaly, it's really uncommon for them to get multiple of the same thing, like a black mass, let's say, and they capture it like 3 or 4 times. So that I will say, I'm not saying one way or the other whether I think whatever it is, but I do think it's weird for them to have captured the same kind of evidence, because they don't normally, right? There's another instance of this later that we'll get into also. So, yeah, black mass, the bathroom, right? Okay. They make a show of, like, going outside and shutting the doors to the compound to show that they're locked in, okay? This is the first time we see this, too, because this is really... this is, like, normally what they do for the regular episodes, and they don't do it ever for the specials, except for this one, which is where they set up a nerve center, which is literally just, like, a bunch of computer monitors that are monitoring their stationary cameras, and somebody stays there. And that's, like, normally how the episodes usually are. Like, it's usually Billy or Jay are always, like, sitting out, and everyone else is investigating. So they do that, and immediately Zach gets mad because he sees what he thinks is a flashlight inside the building, and again he's like, this is supposed to be a cleared building, who's in here? So Zach decides that he's going to go in alone for whatever reason. Jay stays at the nerve center. Aaron and Billy are going to go to the C&D building, whatever that is. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out what C&D would stand for, but all I can think of is corrections and something, which doesn't
Detention?
seem like it would make sense.
It could be. The C&D building could be just, like, the normal, like, building for, like, quote-unquote normal inmates, like, not the special handling or whatever the fuck they called it. Zach goes in by himself with the XLS camera, and this was your favorite part, I guess, where he's trying to invite a spirit to appear and tells them that there's a can of soda, and then a spirit immediately appears in the doorway. Hey, that's my soda. And Zach tells us that this is significant because Lagarde told him that was the scariest hallway in the building.
What a fucking weird phrase.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Aaron and Billy, that's their celeb name, Ari. Aaron and Billy use a spirit box. I will say, this is the other instance. I have watched hundreds of hours of paranormal investigation TV shows. It is extremely rare to get a spirit box EVP come through and say the same thing multiple times in a row. Because they're using the spirit box here, and they get two voices, saying the word hello, which is weird because it's like I understand that hello is like a very common phrase, right? But it's weird for it to occur twice in a row. Like, that's very strange. But then Aaron gets mad and he feels his vest strap get pulled. So I don't know.
I forgot about that. His freakouts are incredible.
His are kind of like the most over the top. And like, I will say a majority of the episode was either the guys arguing with each other or like them.
I think they just freak themselves out and they just like,
sure, yeah.
Like, I have times
so
at work where I've felt like something like caught my shirt that didn't or something. It's just like the way your clothes fit usually. It's not a demon.
I don't know.
Playing a prank on you.
It might be.
Yeah, you're right.
You don't know that.
It probably is.
Yeah, that's what happens. Zach also says he was pushed in the hallway. This is when he goes into Ned's previous cell, which was room 13. And Jay goes to the bathroom where they caught the black mass. He hears a tap-tap noise and literally freaks out and runs immediately to Zach. He was like, oh my god, what was that? In like such a Scooby-Doo-ish way. He like, you know that like sound their feet make when they like scramble? That's what happened. He runs to find Zach. Zach tells him that he also heard 2 taps on his window in the cell that he's sitting in. Really crazy. 2 taps? Then Jay hears a growl in the hallway. We do hear the tapping. To me, it really just sounds like somebody tapping, right? Like, off camera. Fine. Aaron and Billy continue to do a spirit box. They get somebody saying hi. Again, hello, hello, and then hi. Like, that's statistically very weird to me. Aaron and Billy, like, Aaron just keeps getting mad and, like, wanting to argue with Billy, and Billy is, like, trying to, like, I don't even know, again, they're, like, talking over each other so much, it's, like, hard to even know what's happening, but Aaron gets mad and tells Billy to shut up, and then the spirit box immediately says, shut up. That's also kind of weird. The spirit is like, can you get the fuck out of here, because I am trying to sleep and I can't stand it.
It is after dark. It is sleep time.
It is 1 a.m., okay? Now Billy becomes enraged. So enraged that he has to drop his camera so that he can make a fist, because he's just so mad. But the camera conveniently falls and you can see his fist. It's like the Arthur meme. It's just like pans down to his fist. He's so mad. Then they start talking it out, and they're basically just like, bro, like, this isn't us. This is just, it's crazy in here. Like, I'm sorry, like, I got so mad, but I just don't trust you. And Billy's like, yeah, bro, I don't trust you either, okay? And they're just like, I don't know. So they basically are like, I understand that I'm not actually mad at you, but, like, I don't know. I'm pretty mad.
The weirdest fucking, like, lovers quarrel on here.
Yeah. Pretty much, because it's always Aaron and Billy, I feel like, having these kind of and it's always Zach and Jay. Like, Zach and Aaron, I think, kind of go through it sometimes, but because there's a lot of episodes of, like, the episode, the series, where it's, like, Zach and Aaron doing most of it, and the other two stay at Nerve Center together or whatever, and I think they were like, you guys are too much, we have to separate you, like, Aaron is basically just like, dude, it's just, this place got so dark and scary out of nowhere, like, we should leave. So they do. Then they show us a black mass that they caught on a stationary camera. Again, I don't know. It doesn't look like a bug to me, so I'm not really sure what causes the optical illusion of a black mass. Like, I don't know. It is weird though. This is my favorite part. Aaron and Billy leave because they, again, said that the atmosphere is dark and scary now. They go up to Nerve Center, and they look on the monitor, and this is where they see that Zach has Jay pushed up against a wall and is, like, in his face, choking him out or whatever. And they're like, oh my god, bro! And so they, like, run inside. Then it shows us a flashback. It says, moments earlier, Jay is... This is, like, when they were, like, hearing the knocking and, like, running around and being scared and shit earlier, right? Jay is, like, looking around, calling for Zach. Zach is not... A classic Zach is not answering, right? Jay is like, Zach, where are you? Zach, where are you? And Jay, like, goes around the corner, and we see Zach just, like, sitting on the floor by, like... I don't know what it's called. It's, like, a janitor cart. That, like, huge thing that you have, like, the mop water in, you know? It's, like, classic janitor. Just, like, sitting wedged between a wall and one of those things, and he's not responsive. Jay's like, Zach, are you okay? What's going on? And Zach is just, like, sitting there. Eventually he stands up. He looks very wobbly. Don't worry, though. He's still gripping all of his equipment. He's got, like, a camera strapped to his chest, which I think is actually the XLS. And then he's got, like, 2 devices in both hands. But he's, like, so out of it, right, that he can't respond. I don't know. This is when he gets really mad because he says he's lost time.
This dude is losing time so much.
Right? Like, he also at this point don't really know how he knows that he lost time. Like, in the Devil's Island episode, it made sense because Jay literally sent him in just to put down a camera and come back out. And then Jay comes in and is like, dude, it's been half an hour. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, it's only been a couple seconds. Jay doesn't say anything to him, so I'm not really sure how he knows he lost time at this point. But he's basically just like, I lost it. He took it from me. Don't you understand? And he, like, shoves Jay up against the wall. And this is where we get, like, Jay's POV of Zach just, like, heavy... like, he's wearing a mask, by the way, but, like, not his heavy-duty one, just, like, a normal, like, you know, face mask. And he's just, like, heavy breathing into his camera and, like, yelling and, like, crying and losing his mind and shit. It's very strange.
It is.
I don't know if I've...
It's so weird.
Like, Zach gets, like, quote-unquote possessed or, like, filled with rage a lot, but I don't know that I've ever heard him, like, yell like that in my recollection. So that was strange, right? Billy and Aaron are on their way to find... and, like, stop Zach from, like, choking out Jay, essentially. But they are walking up the stairs, and Billy all of a sudden gets really scared. And he, like, can't move forward. He's just, like, standing there on the stairs, and then he's like, Zach? Zach and Jay hear Billy call, and they go into what Zach describes as, quote-unquote, full survival fight mode. Because it's as if they don't recognize Billy and Aaron. They don't know who they are. So the dudes are all together now, and they're all being extremely fucking weird, right? Zach is, like, trying to imply that the building is making them not recognize each other somehow, and so he tells Aaron and Billy to leave them alone for a little bit. Could you guys just leave us alone?
Yeah, just need a little bit of alone time.
Like, Aaron... This is where Aaron... I don't know. The clipping together of this episode is, like, really confusing because it's, like, all the guys together. Zach says, can you please leave us alone? So Aaron and Billy, like, go off by themselves. And then all of a sudden, Aaron is just completely alone. And he's like, I'm really freaking out here because I feel like it's me against everybody else. And I'm in this building alone. And I don't know who anybody is. Like, what? Then we see... a second black mass on the stationary camera, which again, I don't know how to explain. Like, I don't know the mechanics behind how you would make a black mass show up. So there's another one. They go back to cell 20.
I really wish they would do, like one of these, like, I want to see them do one of these, like, overnight stays in these places, but it's the entire just 12 hours or whatever of, like, raw footage.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, I don't know, like, it's one of those things where, like, just I know how these TV shows are made, where I'm like, if you want to believe me, let me see just the raw footage of, like, what you caught, instead of, like, 45 minutes of what essentially ends up being, like, 24 hours of footage.
Yeah, because, like, yeah, sure. They also, like, slow down the image and, like, who knows what else, like, when they're, like, replaying it to you or whatever. So, okay. Okay, so now they're all back at cell 20, which, as you will recall, is the devil worship cell. And they all just, like, start arguing again about nothing.
I think these dudes just hate each other.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think you guys need to take a break. This is when they show us what Zach says is the only light anomaly. There is a second one, but sure. Again, definitely a bug. Then, so they're all in this cell arguing with each other, right? And then Zach says they spend the next 30 minutes looking for each other, even though they feel like they don't know who each other is. And I'm like, I'm so confused about the timeline of what's happening, because, like, you guys were just all together. I don't know. It's so weird. This was my favorite scene, though, because Zach is talking about how we're all looking for each other, but we're, like, on edge and we feel like we don't know who the others are. And Zach slowly, like, walks into frame holding, like, a plastic chair, like, as if he's going to defend himself against his friends.
Yeah.
Then it just cuts to the next day. It's daylight, right? They start talking about... They start talking about just, like, some of the random deaths that have occurred. The new thing that they're going to do tonight is that they're going to go to the admin building and they're going to go to the infirmary. Jay is going to go into the admin building alone for some reason. I don't know why they're always sending Jay alone into stuff, because he, to me, is, like, the scaredy cat of all of them.
No, I think you just explained it right there.
Well, and he started out, if I recall, being mostly, like, the nerve center guy. Like, he was, like, behind the camera. He wasn't doing actual investigation until I think Nick got kicked off or left or whatever it was that actually happened. And then he started investigating. So I feel like he's just, like, they were probably just like, if you want to stay on the show, you have to investigate. And he's like, oh, I'm so scared, but okay. This whole scene to me was, like, very confusing, because Zach has, like, an alert on his Apple Watch or whatever the fuck he has, where they set up motion detector cameras, and if the motion detector gets tripped, it'll, like, send him an alert. So they have a 360 motion detector camera, and it starts going off. So they're like, okay, let's go see what's going on, because it's a camera that essentially, when there's motion, the camera will move to capture it. And what they hear is somebody, like, knocking or tapping on the camera. And then the camera, like, moves to the side, but there's nothing there. There couldn't be a person standing behind the camera or anything.
Not a chance.
The thing that I'm confused about is that they go to look at the camera, and they're standing down the hallway from it, and, like, the camera continues to move around, because they're, like, flashing their flashlights, and there's, like, shadows and shit. So wouldn't the camera be picking up the detection of, like, light and shadows? And they're like, oh my god, dude, it's looking over there. And Billy's like, I can tell from the angle that it's detecting something from left to right. And I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? There's nothing. There's nothing. It's confusing.
It's just, like, I feel like so much of this just comes down to, like, faulty equipment, or, like, glitches in their equipment, and they just lose their fucking mind.
Using equipment incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because then this goes on for a while, and then they decide that they have these, like, balls that glow when you bounce them, and so they decide to roll one down a hallway, and it's, like, flashing, and then it just quote-unquote disappears. And they're like, oh my god. So Aaron goes down there and is like, oh my god, where's the ball, guys? Where's the ball? and they're like flashing their cameras around. The ball just like rolled into another room, and they're like freaking out because they are sure that there's no way the ball could have like rolled into the room by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, first of all, they're like, I got it on film. Zach is always like, did you catch it on film? He's like, yeah, I got it on film. Here's me debunking it. It is a ball that flashes when you bounce it that after a couple seconds will stop flashing. And when they have the camera on the ball, it's like rolling down the hallway and then it disappears because you can't see the light anymore. So obviously the light stopped flashing and then it rolled into the room, and they're like, we're going to stand right in front of the room and roll the ball to show you that there's no depression in the floor. And I'm like, the distance makes a big difference here. First of all, you're not debunking it because you're not doing the exact same thing that you just did, idiots. Anyway.
Yeah, but did you consider that it's ghosts?
I hadn't, and that is a good point. Very valid. I think you've swayed me. Okay. This is when we see the second light anomaly. Again, definitely a bug. This is when Zach feels like he has to lay down. He's not mad this time. He just has to lay down. Aaron feels something go through him. Zach, for whatever reason, Ricochet throws like a recorder down a hallway. And then, so they're like yelling down the hallway, who's here? Who's with us? And I'm like, why? First of all, did you do that? Oh no, I don't know. They see what they describe as a glowing mist, a white glowing mist, but also a light. So I don't know. Take that with what you will. Again, there's no evidence of this. We don't have any visual evidence of it happening. This is when Aaron starts freaking out because he says he feels violated by the whatever went through him, and now he keeps tasting menthol. Gross. He like just went out and smoked. He's like, oh, weird, I'm tasting menthol. I don't know. He gets touched again. He's freaking the fuck out. This is when Zach is like, that's it. Getting the XLS.
Yep, gotta bring out the fucking big guns.
He's got enough. Jay, meanwhile, is by himself doing the obelisk. I will say again, we do have a moment where he is getting what seems to be intelligent answers. The obelisk, if you remember, is just the thing that you talk and then it responds to you with a word. And so Jay is like, hello, I'm here. I want to talk. And it says meet. And he's like, meet, like M-E-E-T, like, oh yeah, good. Glad to meet you. He says something like, I don't know, are you scared? Were you scared here or something? And it replies, yes. And then he's like, oh my gosh, what happened to you? What happened to you here? And then it says beat.
What if it's just hungry and it was actually saying B-E-E-T after M-E-A-T?
He also, well, it said M-E-E-T, but
yeah, but you don't know.
Maybe it doesn't know how to spell.
I would say.
English was not his first language. He's like, I want meat and beets. Hello, like, I'm hungry. Then it seems kind of like he's like excited. He's like, oh cool, yeah, I'm getting intelligent responses. But then he hears a loud noise and he gets scared and runs away again. Zach, this is too much for me. Okay. Zach is like sitting back in that cell. I think the devil worship cell or something. And Aaron's standing in the doorway. We can see Aaron's XLS figure mapped out on him. Zach sees another figure mapped out on the floor, and Zach is like convinced that it is a person dying, like in their last moments, that it's like got its hand on the toilet and it's like laying there and then it disappears. And so Zach thinks like, oh my god, this was somebody's final moments, and then when they passed, they disappeared. I was like, what are you talking? Like, okay. But he gets like really triggered by this, and the guys are saying that it's really cold in here. There's a draft. It's getting really cold. Then he randomly sees another figure on a chair, just like blink and then go away. They do a spirit box section where he says, do you want to talk to me? And the spirit box says, yeah. What I actually heard was no. They're saying that the person's like, yeah. And I was like, no, that person said no to you. They do not want to talk to you. They don't get any other answers, right? Then they go outside, and Zach takes off his crushed velvet black hat at this point and just really wants us to know that he doesn't feel like possessed or that he's full of evil or anything. He's just really, really emotional about the XLS figure who he thinks he saw living their last moments. And he's like trying to talk about it, and Billy interrupts him to ask if he has the walkie-talkie, and Zach is like, gets mad because he's like, why are you interrupting me when I'm trying to like get this out of here? Like, and process his emotions about having seen a fake spirit dying, I guess. And Billy's like, I don't know, I just feel like I just have this feeling that Jay's gonna call us. And then Zach's like, what are you, psychic or something? You just have this feeling? Zach gets mad and throws the walkie. Immediately Jay calls and asks the guys for help, and they're like, whoa, how did you know that? How did you know that? And Billy's like, I don't know, I just had a feeling. And they're like freaking the fuck out as they do, right?
They're so fucking weird.
Zach snaps out of it. He's fine now. He's done processing his grief over this XLS figure, right? Jay calls and is freaking out. He's like, help me, guys. They go in, they rescue him, and then they show us video from his camera where before he called for help, he like steps up onto one of the beds and is like banging on the window, and then he jumps down and is like kicking at the bed and stuff, and they're like, I don't know, alluding to him being possessed or something. I don't really know what's going on here. And then when they bring him outside, he's unresponsive, and he's just like laying on the ground, not talking to them. They're not concerned by this at all, right? They're just like, oh, it's really weird because normally when we're being possessed and we leave the, like, structure, we're fine. Jay is not responsive, so we're just going to go back into the building by ourselves and leave him out here on the grass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not concerned at all.
He's fine.
So they go in with, like, it's some kind of... I don't even know what this thing is, but it's some kind of like thermal thing, right? That's like showing you the degrees, and everything's blue because it's like cold in there and it's dark. And then they get some kind of like smudge of a color, like white on the screen, and they're trying to tell us that it looks like a head and a torso. And they're like, oh my God, there it is. It's like, it's a spirit. And Zach tells us that it validates that it's paranormal because there's no legs on the figure.
Sure.
And that's the end.
Yeah, again, another one that's just like, the end, goodbye.
The end. I don't know. Could be demons. Goodbye.
They gotta fucking work on their fucking...
The outro? Yeah.
Just literally sit and say, wow, we found a lot of stuff this time, or something, anything.
Again, it's like the disconnect between like them and ghost hunters, where ghost hunters, like, people reach out to them. I'm sure at this point they pay money, right? Like, whatever. People reach out to them and say, we've been having these experiences, or these are the claims. Can you come and investigate and let us know? Ghost Hunters comes, collects the evidence, does active debunking to things. At the end, goes over the experience, the stuff that they caught, right? And said, like, this wasn't a poltergeist, it was the wind, or whatever the fuck. Ghost Adventures is, like, really different because they are going to investigate because they want to, I think, and the evidence, or, like, whatever they're getting is, like, for them, it seems. It's for the TV show, right? So it's, like, very different feeling. There's no closure. It's just like, come watch us run around and get freaked out and then say that it's demons, right? They don't, like, validate their work at all, besides to say, ladies and gentlemen, that was a full sentence. Internet skeptics, that was not a moth.
Hey, you dipshits. Guess what? We got a full sentence.
And that's why it feels like Whiplash, because, like, they're making a big deal about this being, like, a 2-hour special or whatever, and then they're just, like, credits at the end. Like, they essentially almost cut him off mid-sentence to be like, this is the end, right? Really bizarre.
Well,
anyways, that's Devil's Den. Really, really sad episode.
They're a bunch of fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
my my overall response to watching these episodes is these dudes are all weird.
I mean, yeah.
All right. Did not look up any news because why would I?
I mean, is there?
I mean, I'm sure there is, but it's probably nothing I care about. I keep
Yeah,
seeing stories
no.
about fucking Nev Campbell and Scream 7 or whatever, and I'm like, who cares?
Not
Why Nev
I.
Campbell decided to come back? Money. That's the answer.
Yeah, literally.
She said she was dropping out because they weren't paying her enough, and that she came back because they paid her enough. You don't need
That's how it go.
2,000 articles about that.
No.
Alright, have you watched anything since Tuesday or whatever the fuck we recorded?
No, I did picked back up my watching of
The Office.
what the fuck? Yeah, The Office. And that's pretty much just it. So that we can just text lines from the episodes that we're watching. That's it.
Yeah, that's like literally like we ran out of whatever shows we normally watch, and we were on like Peacock, and that was just like the top things. I just put it on, and now we're like 4 seasons in. So that's all I've been watching.
It's pretty easy. And again, I like that like I can just put it on, and then if I need to like walk out to do whatever, it's like fine. I know what happens.
Right. I watched the first episode of that Batman cartoon, but we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, I might watch it again, to be honest with you.
I went to watch it last night and realized that whatever account I'm signed into on my phone is no longer actively Prime, so I can only watch the first episode. So I have to like watch it on TV or some shit. Something that's actually logged into it.
Yeah.
All right. We will shout out.
Oh, you know what? And I actually had something, and now I forgot what it was.
What snack did you get lately that you will shout out?
Did I get a snack? I did get some stuff from Trader Joe's that was new that I really liked. But I had a real shout out.
Was it a book?
No. Let's just say shout out to the band Cursive.
There you go. Yeah, I don't think I necessarily have anything
It's also Cursive.
new. Yeah, go listen to Happy Hollow by Cursive. Their best
Well,
album.
because I feel like we were legit talking about shows at the end of the last episode, and then I was like, oh, I'm not ever going to a show ever. And then immediately we saw Cursive is playing up the street from us in October, so we're gonna go to that. No brainer. Good band, really good band.
Yeah, it's always like hard to not go to a show when it's like in a like actually close to your house. When that's like
because
something that doesn't normally happen.
No, like when we lived in Richmond, obviously we got shows all the time because there was like 3 pretty big venues that we could like essentially walk to, and it was like amazing. And then in Oakland, it was like you pretty much have to go to SF, which sucked. And then since we've moved here, there's been almost no shows. Like everybody goes to Tampa or Orlando or something like that. It's like almost never Jacksonville, which I don't blame them. So, yeah, pretty exciting. Someone's coming to our small little, actually huge city. But
I was gonna say,
it
is
is what it
Jacksonville
is.
like a big city?
I think it's one of, if not the biggest city. Like, mass-wise, it takes like an hour to drive from like one side to the other. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it's
And not because of traffic, just because it's, I mean,
just
there
because
is
of how,
traffic,
like,
obviously,
yeah,
but
big it is or
it's
whatever.
just like very long. Yeah. So it is crazy because it's like we live in Jacksonville, and then like our family lives at the shortest 30 minutes away, and it's still Jacksonville. So like it's just crazy.
Auntie shout out the dentist.
Yeah, back on no dentist.
No one ever go to the dentist. It's a mistake.
No, you should definitely go to
No,
the
I
dentist.
just don't do it.
I think you should definitely
I didn't go for like 10 years. It was fine. Now,
It's No, it's
Now
not
I have to
fine.
go again. It sucks.
That's the problem. If
Well,
you
you know what? Make
go
it fucking cheaper, and I'd go to
I
the
know, I
fucking
agree.
dentist.
I do agree. I do agree with you there.
My dentist
Yeah.
kept like getting agitated when I was asking how much shit cost, and I was like, "Come on, I don't have insurance. I work at a fucking grocery store. It's not like I'm just rolling in money. Like I can't just drop $1,200 at the drop of a hat."
Right. Please pay for me then.
Yeah,
If
I
you
was like, literally, make it cheaper, and I will get this fucking taken care of.
Oh, here's some news that I am excited about. General Mills announces this year's Monster cereal has monster pets.
What?
They have pets.
Why? Why just fucking make the cereal people want, not this new
Well,
shit or the
because
one that's like all mixed together.
yeah, I'm not a fan of the one that's mixed together, but essentially they just like added pets that are like very cute because Boo Berry has like a cat ghost and Count Chocula has like a little spider guy. They're just like making some of the marshmallows in the cereal shaped like the little creatures.
It's cereal is getting out of hand, if you ask me.
I will say cereal has gotten very expensive.
Well, yeah,
Like,
everything has.
yeah.
But it's like,
But it's just
like they're all like brand new, like Cocoa Puffs, but they're really tiny now or whatever. And I'm like, okay, so you're just selling like the runoff pieces as a new
Yeah.
cereal.
they're really tiny now.
There's like a bunch of them, like whatever. I don't know if it's like Kellogg or General Mills or which one, but they all like they just took like all of the ones they already make, and they're just like small pieces.
Okay, you know what? They did that with chips too, because there's the ones
Oh,
they literally are
yes.
in like the same can as like Pringle chips, but they're like mini Doritos and mini Cheetos. And I'm like, chips are an appropriate size. You don't need to make them smaller.
You just gave me a shout out. I was gonna see if I could find the picture of it. Yeah, so I found these chips that were essentially like vegan versions of Takis. They were
Oh,
fiery nacho. They were so fucking good.
yum. I like
Zach's
Takis.
Mighty rolled tortilla chips.
Perfect
Oh
description
my god, they were
of
so
Takis.
good. I've never had Takis because, like, as far as I'm aware, none of them were vegan.
Yeah.
And
The only Takis really that I've had, I think you would hate because they were like spicy cucumber or something like that, and they were so good. But
yeah, these were just like they were like way hotter than I expected them to be.
yeah, they're spicy.
They were like usually those like they're like fiery hot chips. I'm like, yeah, this is fine. But I was like, well, these are actually like really hot. I think they had like a sweet chili and like one other flavor maybe, but they were
I like their if it's the same as like Takis, they have like a Thai chili one that's really really good.
yeah. They like I'm assuming it's like the same idea. It looks like this brand makes just like regular tortilla chips too. I wonder if these nacho ones are also vegan. Because I think they might just be one of those brands where it's like not labeled as being vegan, but are just like accidentally vegan.
Right.
Why is this not showing? What Instacart? Oh, what Instacart? Get out of here. I just want to see ingredients. Oh wait, here we go. Let's see. Nope, skim milk. God damn it. I don't like all of these like chip companies that make vegan chips will like they always just do the most dumb flavors. I'm like, just make a nacho cheese. Make me fucking or it'll be like they'll make good flavors but they're like gluten free or like some sort of like whatever where they're not like corn. And so there'll be like a weird texture to the chip that I don't like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, just make a fucking corn tortilla chip that's Cool Ranch for me that I could eat. That's all I want. Jerks.
I was trying
They're
to
all
read
jerks.
why there's milk in chips.
A lot of the time it's like a like binding
Binders
thing,
for
yeah.
ingredients. Yeah. Listen, you don't need that.
Or like, you know, like they'll actually have like cheese in their cheese flavor.
Right, yeah. Why is milk in everything? Yeah, leave us alone, milk. Anyway.
All right. Next week should be Monster Dado.
Hmm.
And then let's see. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So then I think the episode, whatever comes after Monster Dado, might be the anniversary week. I think the anniversary is actually a Saturday this week, so like it could either be what we do before or after it.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, yeah, Monster Dado next week. If you'd like to support us, you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/ISufferPodcast. Definitely a Batman Cape Crusader episode. Probably happened before this episode comes out.
Yeah.
And ideally, at least one of the other regular bonus episodes should be out by the time this episode's out, since this is going to be like 3 weeks away from when we recorded it.
In the future, we have no idea what's going on, so
Yeah.
sorry.
At this point, maybe Katie's already seen Cursive.
I could have.
So. That's probably, like October or some shit?
Yeah, it's like at the end of October,
Yeah.
so probably not.
Yeah. Bonus episodes that you can, I think there's we gotta be getting close to 100 bonus episodes altogether on there, counting the Amityville and Demon stuff and everything. You can leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify and all that garbage. Wherever you listen, I'm sure there's some sort of way to rate us. Give us 5 stars. Tell everybody we're the only good horror movie podcast.
That's right. Tell the people the truth.
We're
the only ones brave enough to cover Ghost Adventures, okay?
We're the only ones just that needed to.
And Twilight, okay?
Yeah.
We are not afraid.
We've covered the only 2 good things in the world.
That's right. Exactly. You're on my side now.
It's fucking... Caitlin's friend Tara came over the other night as I was getting ready for work, and all she wanted to talk she was like, all right, we have to talk about Twilight. She's like, what'd you think? I was like, it's terrible. It's some of the worst shit I've ever seen. She's like, I know, right? It's so good.
Well, it is a fact. You can't unsee it once you've seen it. So
bad. The more I ever think about it, I'm like, what a garbage franchise.
Oh, it's so good.
You can follow Kit at Hidden Kitstery, a Kitrification of Blood. You can follow Katie at Werewolfface. Join Katie's Patreon at patreon.com/werewolfface. Are you doing August right now?
No.
Alright, good.
No, for reasons I won't get into.
Well, I know
I am not.
I saw you posted they dropped
it
2 days before August.
Okay, no. Not only that, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not doing it this year, though. So, you know what? I feel very free.
Yeah. Draw one ghost.
Doing whatever I want.
At the very end of August.
I will. Be like, that's...
It's just literally just a blank piece of paper. Be like, there's a ghost here.
Yep, here it is.
Possessed me.
This is... I was possessed this whole time. It
said, I love you. Do you love me?
It was the most terrifying thing that's ever occurred and ever will occur to me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is undeniable proof of the paranormal.
You should just take a blank piece of paper and just do the ... a word ... in the quotation marks like they do on Ghost Adventures. Or just put unexplained voices and be like, here's my ghost.
Here it is. I got it. A full sentence. It was a full sentence made by a spirit.
Alright.
And it said, what up?
Yeah. It's a ghost that died in the 90s.
I will never get over it.
Alright. Monsternado next week. Sure it'll be extremely bad. I bet it's got very good effects. That's gonna be my guess.
I bet it's really actually what do people call it? Elevated horror.
Yeah. I want to see what the rating is right now on Letterboxd. It is currently at 2.5. I don't know how that's possible when literally all of the ratings are half star and 1 star.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. I hope you have violent, angry outbursts like Zach Baggins, but why?